the energy of people working at jobs which are both highly competitive and highly coveted.
I see myself staying in the business as long as they'll have me, until I grow old and gray and they say I'm washed up, but I love it. I absolutely love it.
In an age when television can confer instant celebrity, there is no more certain route to recognition than anchoring the local news. In smaller television markets like Mason City, Iowa, news anchors are the most visible people in the entire community.
KIMT News Channel 3's Katrina Peterson.
You can't go anywhere without somebody recognizing you. They really think that they know you. So I think they really connect with the anchors here somehow.
We're kind of lucky to have a TV station in a small community like this. So to have TV personalities, which our news anchors are, is a big deal. I mean, for us, those are our stars. Yeah, they really are.
In Mason City and northern Iowa, one of the big hometown stars was the anchor of the morning news on KIMT, Jody Husentroop.
So you're listening to me. Okay, I got it. Best place to be.
Good afternoon and welcome to your local midday news. I'm Jody Husentroop.
Everyone in Mason City felt like they knew her, not just because of the news, because she was a visible person in the community. And she did a really good job.
Good thinking. Way to go, Kevin.
I'm getting there slowly.
Way to keep me in check. Okay,
she was
now I'm
just
reading the news.
one of those rare people who what they project through the camera is what you see in person. And, that's star quality. She could have gone very, very far.
But Jody Husentroop's promising career was cut short in the most shocking way imaginable.
It scares the living daylights out of me sometimes. It really scares me that somebody could just vanish like that and all you find is a few of their belongings and nothing else.
Jody Husentroop disappeared in a case that set off one of the largest manhunts in Iowa history. Police suspect Jody was abducted, and they say the roots of that abduction may lie in Jody's overwhelming ambition, her dream to be on television.
Even when she was a little girl, she just thought she'd like to be on TV. Well, her dad used to tease her, of course, oh, here comes my movie star, and stuff, and you belong in Hollywood and all that. So, but she took it really seriously in high school. It just came natural for her.
Jody was a positive person and just fun. We became best friends through high school, and she always talked about being a news anchor. That's what she always wanted to do. And she followed her dream, and she was very much a goal setter, and she met her goals, and that's what she was doing.
Jody pursued her media dreams at Minnesota's St. Cloud University, where she studied mass communications. Professors say Jody stood out at a time when more and more college students were drawn to the television spotlight.
Lots and lots of young people are coming into these fields because there's that sort of contemporary, sexy, cultural allure. It's sometimes frustrating when you have students who have aspirations that are way beyond their capabilities. Jody was one who had aspirations that were very realistic.
After college, Jody's aspirations to break into commercial television led to a job as an intern at KGAN in Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
She was very energetic, and she came in the door and said, let me do whatever I can do. She was willing to empty the trash to get in and stay busy.
She worked very, very hard, was very sweet, very friendly, put in long hours, and when offered the chance to actually work in a bureau here, she jumped at it.
3, 2, 1. Last time. Good evening. 3, 2, 1. Thanks for joining. 3, 2, 1. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jody Husentroop in Decorah, Iowa.
Within 6 months after arriving at the station, Jody was reporting on the air from KGAN's Iowa City Bureau.
Just like bringing triplets home from the hospital, these 2 girls and this boy also take some extra care.
She was very green,
very determined, and she wanted to work her way to the top.
Colleagues at KGAN say Jody was a fast learner. After only a year, she left Cedar Rapids for a bigger job in a smaller television market, Mason City, Iowa. Mason City, population 30,000, is a farm and family-oriented community.
We thought Mason City was a real safe place for Jody to go and work. It seemed like a nice-sized town. We weren't nervous about it at all, and she seemed to feel that it was a step up in her career.
Mason City's KIMT reaches nearly 500,000 viewers in northern Iowa. Jody was groomed to be a morning and noon anchor there by news director Doug Murbach.
She had a lot of personality on her tape, and a Midwestern girl who grew up in Minnesota, and our area of coverage is Iowa and Minnesota, so she was a natural fit there. She had a little bit of a Minnesota accent with the long vowels, Jody Husentrut.
In New Hampton, Jody Husentrut, News Channel 3.
And we thought we could work with that and try to help her get rid of some of that regional dialect that she had.
But she was just such an outgoing, gregarious, vivacious, infectious personality that people migrated to her because she was just so warm and genuine.
We're against cancer. Robin Wolfram was an evening anchor at KIMT when Jody first arrived.
And in the news business, it's not real common that you get extremely close with, your peers, at least early on, because it's such a competitive industry. But we ended up developing just a really wonderful friendship. We both had goals of, being on national television. And we always would talk about it. And being a local, high-profile television personality, no matter where we went, people knew who we were.
Iowans haven't seen a streak like this since 1991.
Within months after arriving in Mason City, Jody Husentrut was an area celebrity, and a growing audience for her morning news show reflected her popularity.
Some people have that certain something. It's ephemeral, it's difficult to describe, but you either have it or you don't. What was it about Jody that made her pop?
Her personality.
Easily planned for.
People just really liked to watch her.
However, as time passes, interferences often occur.
People could relate to her as a girl next door, and just had a Midwestern kind of personality that people around here really loved.
But 18 months after she got to Mason City, Jody discovered a chilling dark side to the media celebrity she so desired.
That's the tragedy of it all. Her drive and skill and talent and ability to become a good broadcast news anchor. Perhaps her having been on the track to that goal may have cost her her life.
Police say an obsessive viewer may have targeted Jody as an object of desire. And as the investigation continued, it would become apparent Jody knew she was being followed. When we come back...
And she got very, very nervous and was even crying when she called my mom on the phone.
Someone had her in his sights, maybe even tracking her like prey.
Whoever took Jody knew her schedule, where she lived, knew what time she went to work, and even knew what door she'd come out.
Stay with us.
Mason City, Iowa is a small, friendly town. It seemed impossible that someone as well known as Jody Husentrut, the local TV anchor, could just disappear. But in the 5 minutes it took Jody to get from her home to the news station, she vanished. Who took her? Where was she? What happened to Jody as she headed to work in the dark, early morning hours? Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
For many viewers in northern Iowa, the dawn brings the morning news on KIMT.
Boy, what a story that was. Well, someone else who gives us a story each morning.
Jody Husentroot was their first contact with the outside world each and every morning.
When you get up in the morning to watch the news, you want to hear it from somebody you're comfortable with hearing it from. Someone who gives you that sense of family member, friend, talking through the tube, telling me the news.
The landing at Plymouth Rock took place some time ago, but today
these are the qualities that people like. I think it's intimacy.
In the chilly autumn of 1994, Jody feared one viewer was taking that sense of intimacy too far. She was convinced a suspicious van was following her.
And she got very, very nervous and was even crying when she called my mom on the phone. So after that, she was taking even more precautions.
Jody reported her fears to the Mason City Police.
She thought she was being followed one morning on her way to work, and she made us aware of that right away, and we gave her escorts a few times after that, and no problems, no further problems.
But you took it seriously the first time when she thought somebody might have been following her?
Yes, and so did she. She was aware of her surroundings, and she had taken self-defense courses.
My husband teaches martial arts, and we were giving a free self-defense workshop at our health club. She alluded to the fact that she just wasn't feeling comfortable with where her situation, getting up early in the morning and going to work by herself.
Underlying Jody's concern was the fact that she left for work each day in the dark, lonely hours of early morning. Jody and her behind-the-scenes producer, Amy Coons, arrived at the station around 3 a.m. Occasionally, one of them would oversleep. That's what Amy thought had happened on the morning of June 27, 1995.
So I gave her a call about 4 o'clock, and she answered and said, "Oh, what time is it? I'll be in 10 minutes."
How did she sound that morning?
Tired. Just tired, like I had just woken her up. Nothing out of the ordinary, you know.
Jody lived only 5 minutes from the studio. When she didn't arrive at work by 4:30, Amy left a phone message, and then another.
I called about 5 o'clock, left her another kind of frantic message saying, "Jody, come on, if you fell back asleep, wake up, come on, we need you here." Honestly, at first I was really mad. I thought I had to edit and write and put everything together, hoping that she'd show up, you know, in like 10 minutes before airtime.
But when the 6 a.m. airtime arrived, Jody's anchor chair was still empty. Amy filled in. When there was still no sign of Jody by the show's end at 7 a.m., Amy called the police.
But why didn't you call the police sooner, before you went on the air?
I thought, oh, it's Jody, you know. I mean, there are times when she came in at 5:30, just, "Oh, sorry, I'm late." And, you know, I did the same thing. I don't know why I didn't call the police, and so many people have asked me that before, but I just didn't think anything could be that wrong. I really didn't.
But when police arrived at Jody's residence, things seemed very wrong very quickly. Inside her second-floor apartment, everything appeared to be in order. But in the apartment parking lot, evidence around Jody's red Mazda Miata immediately suggested she had not disappeared voluntarily.
There was obviously a struggle outside of her car door. In fact, we believe she actually had the key in her door lock and unlocking it at the time that she was grabbed from behind.
Why do you believe that?
Well, because the key was bent. We found the key bent and out of the door lock.
Jody's apartment bordered a small park, a convenient hiding place, police say, for either someone close to Jody or someone who'd been stalking her long enough to know her routine.
Whoever took Jody knew her schedule,
knew where she lived, and knew what time she went to work, and was patient enough to wait even after she overslept. Knew her car, and even knew what door she'd come out.
What were you able to deduce about what kind of struggle took place?
Because of the large amount of items that we found struggled, and the area that those items actually covered, it was very apparent that she was fighting for her life.
Over a trail that stretched across the entire parking lot, police found not only Jody's car keys, but a pair of her shoes, jewelry, a can of hairspray, and a blow dryer, items she usually carried to work.
One of the police investigators gave me a call and said, "We think maybe something happened to Jody." You feel like somebody punches you in the stomach and you've lost all the air. You know, you're just like, ugh. You can't believe what you're hearing, and you don't want to believe it.
Had she ever talked to you about any fears that she had or any concerns about somebody acting oddly?
We had talked about that before. We thought, you know, this small town, everybody else in the world is asleep at that point. You know, something could happen and nobody would ever know. I mean, we had that conversation. That's why it scares me so much, you know. Here I go.
Frank Stearns and other police officers were prominent around the newsroom that day, checking Jody's work area for answers.
You know, that day it's dealing with police, making sure the rest of your staff is okay, especially female staff members that are experiencing some pretty personal, terrible things when one of their friends and coworkers is missing.
And it was tough. And because I knew her so well, I mean, I just visualized a lot of things that, you know, possibly could have happened to her. And it was really difficult, you know, to think about that kind of stuff. And then on top of all of that, carrying through on a professional level.
She had to go on the air at 6 and 10 and read stories about her friend missing. I don't know how she got through that, but she did.
Mason City Police tonight are looking for this Mason City woman. Jody said that she was on her way. Now, she never showed up. Police are investigating the disappearance, but aren't saying much else at this time.
Inside, I was feeling so scared and so hurt and all these emotions. Because things like that just don't happen in Mason City. They just never did. And so we were all kind of, you know, trying to piece it all together.
For Jody's co-workers, it was a day turned upside down and inside out. People whose job had been delivering the news suddenly were the news.
The rest of the day was a nightmare. Dealing with outside media, TV stations, radio stations, newspapers calling and, you know, wanting to get the story, which we understand that's part of their job too.
There were probably a dozen or so media crews in town today, others calling over the phone here to the station for information on the case.
This whole city block around our TV station was satellite trucks. All satellite trucks, all reporters. I just couldn't believe it. You know, I thought, damn media. I'm one of them, and I'm being bombarded by them.
So nothing suspicious?
Nothing suspicious, no other noises in the room. It was just her. She sounded tired. Sounded like I had just woken her up. My worst fears are that we'll find her dead. You know, it's just strange. I just couldn't leave the station without so many people swarming around me.
I was sitting in the newsroom and still, you know, absorbing everything that had happened. And one of the networks was doing a story on Jody. And there I sat, and it was one of those just incredible moments where I thought, this is not what Jody meant when she said she wanted to be on national television.
And soon a new troubling thought among Jody's co-workers emerged. Could it have been somebody at the station? When we come back.
Suddenly everyone became something of a suspect. I know many of us here thought, could it have been you? Could it have been you?
And could someone else be in danger?
I was scared that whoever did this was watching me, just like they were watching Jody.
Stay with us.
When news anchor Jody Huisentrude didn't show up for a morning newscast, her friend and co-producer Amy Coons filled in for her. The hours turned into days, and Amy remained in the anchor seat, fueled by an adrenaline rush of too little sleep and too many frightening questions. The biggest one of them all being, where was Jody? Elizabeth Vargas continues our story.
Live from KINT News Channel 3, this is Daybreak.
Well, as you can imagine, it's been another difficult day here at KIMT. It's been more than 24 hours now since the mysterious disappearance of News Channel 3's morning and noon anchor. I was kind of a zombie for the first week, trying to just cope, trying to do the job, trying to do the interviews, because we wanted to get the word out there that, hey, we need help. We don't know what happened to our morning anchor.
The day after Jody disappeared, police began a search of the rural areas surrounding Mason City.
It was extremely nasty. On the onset, that day and the day after and the day after that, we had people from several different departments, other police departments in here, helping us search, as well as the dogs and the helicopters.
I still see the video over and over in my head of the dogs in the fields and the volunteers on boats on the Winnebago River. And those just very vivid.
What do you hope for in those times? Do you hope they'll find something, or do you hope that they won't?
Oh, good question. A little of both. You hold out hope that they don't find anything, because that means she's still maybe alive somewhere.
The searches turned up nothing. Hopeful on the one hand, worrisome to police on the other.
In our profession, you realize more time that goes by, the less the chances are of ever finding her. Within days, the FBI was brought in. Within hours, the Division of Criminal Investigation, our state police, were brought in. Within the first day or two, the numbers grew into over 100 law enforcement people that were either searching or doing interviews, looking for Jody.
At the height of the investigation, Mason City Police called this the War Room. It was outfitted with a dozen phone lines. Officers manned them around the clock. It became one of the largest manhunts in Iowa history, with police officers interviewing more than 400 people and tracking down at least 1,300 leads.
The investigation got so big, so fast, that people who knew Jody years ago were questioned within days.
The police called me a few days after the disappearance and wanted to know what my relationship was with her. And I told them that we routinely sent letters to each other and called each other, and we were good friends.
Suddenly, everyone became something of a suspect because it was so uncertain what happened to her. So yes, everyone connected with her life. I know many of us here thought, could it have been you? Could it have been you?
Among those who drew the early focus of police attention was Mason City businessman John Van Cise. He had hosted a surprise 27th birthday party for Jody 4 days before she disappeared.
She wasn't dating anyone exclusively. She had an older friend. He was about 50 years old, John Van Cise. I knew how much fun they had together, and I knew that he wanted her as more than just a friend. And Jody had talked before that we've talked it over and we're just friends, and John knows that, and we still hang out and still have fun together.
The evening before she vanished, Jody had gone to John Van Cise's apartment to watch the video taken at her party.
We learned that he was the last person to see Jody alive that night. He told us that everything was fine when she left his apartment.
And there was no evidence of a souring of a relationship, or perhaps one person wanting a little more than the other person might have wanted, anything that might have led to a quarrel?
We didn't find anything that may have led to a quarrel. We found that John had strong feelings for Jody. And I think that's obvious in the news clips and the hours and the days right after Jody's disappearance.
But she just meant so much to me, and she had so much fun together, her and her friends. And I would name my vote after her because just because she's Jody, and she's been such a big part of my life here lately, and she just makes me feel so good and feel great about things. That's Jody. I mean, you can't help but love the woman. You just can't help but love her.
Police asked John Van Sice to take a lie detector test. He passed it. For those who knew Jody and for police, the early days of the investigation left them feeling very far from any answers.
It eats away at you a little bit at a time, you know, the first 24 hours, then the next 48 hours. And then you're into the fourth day, and yeah, you're pretty low.
Were you dealing with Jody's family and friends?
Oh, of course, yeah. But it's hard. It's really hard to stand by and watch family agonize over that.
My mom just couldn't handle it. She couldn't cope. She was 45 when she had Jody, and that's probably why they had that close bond. You know, she was her late-in-life baby. And then my dad, he died of colon cancer when she was 13. It wasn't always easy for Jody in that respect, but she was just our pride and joy. I couldn't have had a better kid sister. She was perfect in my eyes, and to have had this happen, you know, it's really devastated us.
The grief and fear triggered by Jody's disappearance spread through Mason City.
It was overwhelming because her picture was everywhere. I think a lot of people were in the habit of leaving their doors unlocked, not really considering that something like that could happen here, and particularly to have Jody extracted from our community. It was painful for everyone.
Jody, I hope you can hear how much we do miss you and how much we want you back.
Even if you hadn't met her in person, you had that feeling of knowing her, and I think it made it personal for everyone. They felt like it could happen to them or someone else that they knew.
Around the studios of KIMT, that feeling of vulnerability became especially heightened.
After about a week, I was called into the news director's office with the general manager and the FBI and the chief of police. I was told that there was a man who was on the internet in a chat room who called himself Captain Kidnap, Cap Kid for short, and he was conversing with someone on the internet that there were plans for my abduction, that I was going to be next.
The kidnap threat remained just that, but it fueled fears about who may be watching, on and off camera.
I was scared that whoever did this was watching me, just like they were watching Jody, like they planned it all out. And I wondered why they chose her instead of me. You know, it's like you feel grateful, feel relieved, but you feel guilty for thinking, phew, it was her, not me, you know? It's just crazy.
It's incredibly frightening to think that they may have been watching the station and watching her come in the front door and figuring out when she came in and when she left. Not just her, but other people that worked here also, and that's chilling.
Now, two questions haunted the press and the police. What happened to Jody? And was it going to happen again? When we return, fear spreads through the newsroom.
There's a real segment of the population that's not harmless. These are the people that feel as though you belong to them.
And it seemed as if Jody's disappearance might be just the beginning.
He had called and said that he was going to kidnap me and rape me and kill me.
Stay with us.
Missing persons cases often draw a lot of strange tips, and the case of Jody Husentrude was no exception. Leads were still coming into law enforcement, but they were becoming more and more bizarre. Jody was working as a waitress at a truck stop in a neighboring state, or she was on TV in Alaska, or she'd been kidnapped by an Arab sheikh. TV reporters on the case have their own theory, one that struck uncomfortably close to home. Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
After Jody Husentruth's disappearance, anchor women throughout the area worried about who might be watching and what strange attachments they might be making.
There's a real segment of the population that's not harmless. These are the people that feel as though you belong to them, or they need to get next to you in an unhealthy way. And it's really terrifying because you just don't know quite what to do.
For Cedar Rapids anchorwoman Amy Johnson and many other Midwest television news people, Jody's apparent abduction stirred frightening memories of their own encounters with potential stalkers.
One was an email I got from out of state telling me that a sexual predator of sorts was following me in his car. That frightened me terribly. And another time would be there was a mentally disturbed man who felt like he had to get to me to tell me that Channel 2 was broadcasting negative images over the airwaves that were killing his parents, that those negative images were coming from the son of Sam.
10, 9.
You don't know who's out there watching you. You really don't.
The power of their transmitted voices and images to stir obsessive desires was felt by no one more chillingly than former anchorwoman Lee Germanis. Lee was an evening anchor at KTTC in Rochester, Minnesota, when she received letters and phone calls from a man police eventually tracked down and arrested.
He had called and said that he was going to kidnap me and rape me and kill me and cut my body up and leave it in bags all over the countryside and mail my head to the front desk of KTTC.
Lee lived in rural Minnesota at the time and says she never got over the fear of wondering who might be watching and waiting. For her, Jody Husentruth's case struck a real nerve.
It's scary. You know, you want to think it's a fluke, it's a lightning strike, that it's not going to happen again, but who knows?
The television press attacked Jody's story with a vengeance, an urgent drive to find out what happened to one of their own.
With police so far coming up empty-handed in this case, it leaves everyone...
We tried to do something every day, even if it was the smallest tidbit. We were chasing leads that the police were chasing, even if they had a strange car that they were looking for, a make or model of a car. We made a whole story out of that.
Okay, we're certainly hoping for the best. It's nice to see all the support.
It just seems unbelievable to me that she could just vanish off the face of the earth, and none of those leads ever came to any kind of fruition at all.
I'm just now finally openly dealing with some of the feelings and some of the anger and
Anger at
whoever did this. And anger that we can't figure out what happened.
Anything you do that might somehow lead to a break and help lead to find out what really happened to Jody, I believe strongly in doing. Most victims aren't people that are in people's living rooms every night, and that made her different.
Crime reporter Caroline Lowe at WCCO in Minneapolis did some of the most enterprising and aggressive reporting on Jody's case.
Police tied this man to last year's string of rapes. He should automatically be investigated because he lived in Mason City when Jody was abducted.
WCCO focused on a man later convicted of rape in Minnesota, lived just 2 blocks from KIMT when Jody disappeared.
One of his cellmates had been saying some things and reciting a rap rhyme that indicated where Jody might be.
The jailhouse rap lyrics said a woman was, quote, stiffin' around Tiffin. WCCO spearheaded a search of a remote farm in Tiffin, Iowa, using police cadaver dogs.
The Mason City police came and the dogs checked out the farm. 2 of the 3 of them had what they call full alerts, which in cadaver dog language means that they detected the odor of human death. And that means, to their owner's interpretation, at some point there'd been a body there or some kind of human remains.
The target of the WCCO report, convicted rapist Tony Jackson, called the station to strenuously deny any involvement with Jody Huisentruit. The police, working with both state agents and the FBI, say that well-intentioned television detective work isn't likely to be telling them anything new.
There's nothing to indicate to us that the subject in Minnesota had anything to do with it.
This man's name is Tony Jackson?
That's correct.
Did you interview Tony Jackson?
Yes, I did.
And what did he say at all?
Well, I can't get into the interview, but again, nothing in that interview led us to believe that it has anything to do with this.
It's got to be unusual to be investigating a case that you probably believe might involve a homicide by this point and not have a body.
That makes it very difficult. Makes it very difficult. In a normal homicide, you can usually narrow that down and count the people on one hand as to who has contact with that person or would have the opportunity. In Jody's case, because of the large viewing audience, it's really difficult. It could be anybody. Sure, it could be anybody. Somebody that was obsessed with her, watched her on TV.
Could be anybody with a television set.
Anybody with a television set.
As the months of the investigation turned into years, hopes that Jody would ever be found alive steadily dwindled.
And sadly, not much new information about her disappearance has been uncovered. We still see her picture and the yellow ribbons every day that we come to work.
It was filled with hope, the first anniversary. The second anniversary, we still kept the hope alive, thinking just maybe, something would happen, that we would find her. That's when we planted the tree and stuff. The third anniversary, the hope did start to dwindle on the fourth. I know reality says no, that it's not in our favor that she's going to be found alive. But oh my, so many times during the day, night, you think of her. I remember one of her college friends telling me right after shortly it happened, she said, I feel guilty sleeping in my bed and being nice and warm, and I just wonder where Jody is, this cold night. And, yeah, we just don't know where she is.
And as the years rolled on, another question would haunt her friends and family. What if the man who took Jody was still out there?
What if the killer's watching? What if his former girlfriend's watching?
And what happened to the people she left behind?
I felt awful doing her position. It's something I had always wanted, but I didn't want to get it that way.
Stay with us.
More than a decade had passed since Jody Huisentruit disappeared, but those who knew her could not forget, and her disappearance changed their lives. Once again, Elizabeth Vargas.
Mason City, Iowa anchorwoman Jody Huisentruit disappeared in farm country. Time has not healed her family's wounds, nor eased the frustration of those trying to unravel the case.
Once you've connected with something like this, it stays with you, you think about it, and you just wonder what else you could be doing. It's still with me every day. When I sit down at my computer, her picture is there next to some other victims' pictures, and you think about it.
8 years after Jody's disappearance, Minneapolis crime reporter Carolyn Lowe went on to get a second job as a police reporter.
What if the killer's watching? What if his former girlfriend's watching? I just hope, if that's the case, that somebody will do the right thing and come forward.
Police stress that someone out there somewhere knows something. Investigator Al Hobrecht.
The investigation is still very active. We get rumors, tips, theories, things like that, and we will continue to follow up on those as they come in.
Human remains were discovered on the edge of town. The thought was they might have found Jody.
I got a big shot in the arm there, that hopeful that maybe we've finally come across Jody. Well, it wasn't the case. So I had a big up and then I had a big down.
It turns out the remains were those of a man who had also disappeared in 1995.
Obviously, as the years pass, as time passes, the chance of solving the case gets slimmer and slimmer.
Times and lives move on. Amy Kuhns went on to anchor at a larger station in Rochester, but she is still haunted by the fact that her break came the morning Jody disappeared.
I felt awful doing her position. It's something I had always wanted, but I didn't want to get it that way.
This is KIMT News Channel 3's Daybreak. Coverage you can count on.
Jody's morning anchor slot was later filled by Chastity Wahlberg.
Summertime is barbecue time and good.
At first it was kind of weird, just knowing that this is what Jody did. But this job is like a dream come true for me. It's something I've wanted to do since I was in high school, middle school even.
Can you guess what's the most popular appetizer in restaurants today?
My absolute dream, though, would be to move to a market like the Twin Cities.
That was Jody and her friend Robin Wolfram's dream, too.
Coming up at 7:15, we'll talk with
And Robin achieved it, becoming an anchor in the Minneapolis St. Paul market.
Thank you, Alex, and good morning, everyone. There's an all-day blood drive in Minneapolis today to help
Just
people.
thought, gosh, Jode, isn't this cool? You know, we're in Minneapolis. A little part of her I carry with me everywhere I go. And it's that piece that I think that I've been able to come to in light of just this incredibly tragic, incredibly sad story, that a little part of her does live within me. And so I'm hoping, and